Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today we are back and talking about NFL free agent IDP signings that we love and we hate.
Hike!
So in this episode, Joe and I are going to talk about two each that we love and hate. We're going to start off with the love, Joe. Who are you loving?
I'm going to start off with linebacker Zack Baun with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know we had talked about Zack Baun, Steve, and nervous if he went to a different team. But here now, we don't have to worry about that. He's back with the Philadelphia Eagles, back in that Vic Fangio system. And I think he's able to build off of the season that he did and had that breakout season this past year and continue to really be a linebacker stud here for IDP leagues.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this contract, it was a 3-year, $51 million contract. The key number in this, $34 million guaranteed. What that tells me is that he is definitely going to be there for the next 2 years. The third year is a we'll see. So to me, you can't ask for anything more when it comes to, off the ball linebackers. They're tough. So I'm with you. I love this landing spot for him. I had him lower in our linebacker tiers when we had released those back in the day. And this will definitely have changed. This will change where I put him going forward. I think this breakout year that he had, he's only going to continue. I didn't think that Howie Roseman was going to pay him the money. He's never invested in the interior linebacker position. But like you said, the difference is Fangio's defense really can excel by having a player with Baun's ability. And so as a result, Fangio's probably going to be there now to stay. And they felt like they needed to have him. So it's a slam dunk move. I mean, if you have him in Dynasty, you've got to be thrilled because if he went somewhere else and chased the money, it would have been a bad thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, him being able to stay there in the system that he excelled in and then alongside the, interior D-line that the Philadelphia Eagles have and which just helps create those, him to fit in with those gaps that they're able to create in the run game and everything. Everything worked out well from a IDP standpoint for Zack Baun staying with the Eagles.
It'll be interesting. He's a free agent in our league. I'll be very curious to see, what ends up happening with that owner. Typically, we haven't seen linebackers get paid of late anyways. So if he does become a free agent, what will be his interest level? But a guy who was basically a waiver wire pickup that could be a league winner for you now is becoming a guy who could have some serious value at the linebacker position going forward in dynasty leagues. So my first player that I love is going to be defensive end Haason Reddick. Reddick had quite the drama this past season. Obviously, got traded from Philadelphia, went to the Jets. It just was a nightmare. The guy didn't get it, wasn't involved in training camp in the preseason, started off late, ended up playing 10 games with the Jets, only had 1 sack. But the Jets were an absolute dumpster fire to begin with. I mean, the whole team from start to bottom, they were in rough shape. So to me, I throw out that year. You look at the years prior to that, 11 sacks, 16 sacks, 11 sacks, 12 and a half sacks. The guy's only 30 years old. Pass rushers can play later in their career. Now he goes to Tampa Bay, who, Todd Bowles, you can say whatever you want about him as a head coach. He's a great defensive mind in the NFL. And honestly, the Bucs desperately needed a guy like Haason Reddick. They don't really have. I mean, they've got Yaya Diaby, who's an up-and-coming player. They drafted Chris Braswell. Didn't really do much for them. They really needed a guy. I mean, Joe Tryon left in free agency. They haven't really had, honestly, maybe I'm going too far back, but really besides Jason Pierre-Paul, I feel like they haven't really had.
How about Shaq Barrett?
Well, Shaq Barrett, too. He had a breakout year, and then he left. I feel like he became – he was a Bronco, and then he went to Tampa. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. But you were looking at me funny, and I was trying to remember everything. No, Barrett was a really good player for them as well. That's true. So, really, Barrett was the last guy. But I think Reddick could really provide a lot of juice. I think he becomes relevant again. He was irrelevant based on everything I had with the Jets. I think his value just dropped like a rock. I think that's changed now.
Yeah, definitely. I like the landing spot with the Bucs a lot. I mean, you mentioned it. Being able to, I think it's going to help Yaya Diaby should just help that whole D line along. Just having another guy that you really have to worry about, pay attention to. I still think Reddick's got a lot of good play left in him. Especially we'll see what he does with a full training camp now. I know all that holdout stuff just really affects the next season, and you're more apt to have like those soft tissue injuries and things like that, and it just disrupts the whole season. So I think with given the whole off season that he's got now and the opportunity he has with Todd Bowles in that Bucs front, I really like where Reddick landed.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So who's your other player that you loved, Joe?
Yeah, you know how I like this guy, Steve, and I was nervous about him. But
you love this guy, Joe. You don't just like him.
That's true. That's true. I love this guy, and it's Ernest Jones, another linebacker. I got him in Dynasty. I was nervous about where he was going to go, but finally, Ernest Jones has some stability. The Seahawks signed him to a 3-year deal. Sorry about that. And he's going to be locked and loaded, looking to play alongside Tyrese Knight at the linebacker position with the Seattle Seahawks. And, Ernest Jones is just a guy that gets a lot of tackles, and I would expect nothing less than another 100 tackle season for Ernest Jones here.
So, again, this is the type of thing where I want to look at the contract. 3 years, $28.5 million with the Seahawks, including $7 million signing bonus, $15 million guaranteed. What that tells me is it was a little bit lower as far as money, but that means he's probably, not as much as Baun, right?
Right.
But I think Ernest Jones, he's probably going to be there for at least 2 of the 3 years, which is good. We needed him to have some stability. He did well, like you said, in Seattle. The biggest question was he keeps getting folded around by team by team by team. At some point, are people just going to say this guy isn't any good, and then he wouldn't have a place to go? That was the concern. That's what I was worried about, you were worried about. I'm a little surprised that you didn't talk about Dre Greenlaw as your winner, because to me that's a huge win for your Broncos. But I guess you feel that Ernest Jones you like that more than the Dre Greenlaw pick.
Yeah, I mean Dre Greenlaw is just a little bit more risky. I mean, I like the move for the Broncos, but from an IDP standpoint, we'll see. Alex Singleton will be coming back. He's an absolute tackle machine as well. Dre Greenlaw, I think he's going to be great for the Broncos and finally be that coverage piece that they've been missing. But I guess just what does that look for like from an IDP standpoint? I feel more comfortable. We've seen what Ernest Jones has been able to do at the end of last year with the Seattle Seahawks. It was very good. So happy that he gets to now play a full season with the Seahawks.
All right, so my next love player, or my last love player here, and I know you're probably going to call me a homer on this one, Joe, but I'm going to go with Joey Bosa, defensive end now with the Buffalo Bills. Look, when the Bills made this signing, I didn't really like it at first, to be honest, but it's been growing on me ever since. The Bills tried to make a splash a few years ago with Von Miller, and it worked initially. Before Von Miller tore his ACL, against the Lions, I think it was, at Ford Field on Thanksgiving, he just didn't come back as the same player. He tried to come back too early. He showed some flashes this past year, but, he was a dominant player when he first came on the scene. So they struck out on that one, and, Big Baller Bean decides to go for it again and go with a guy like Joey Bosa, who to me has been a big name. And he hasn't been able to stay durable. But then I thought about it. It's like, well, the rotation that the Bills have actually probably be very helpful for him. He's not going to be on the field 100%, which you would say that's bad. But for a guy like him, if he's more fresh, if he's more healthy, if he's not having, as much wear and tear, maybe he's able to have, higher set. I mean, the reality is, Bosa's not a guy that has been all that dominant. And he's probably, most times, people aren't ranking him in the top 25 for edge rushers. So, to me, his value is kind of behind him. But this is an opportunity in a Buffalo Bills defense that, maybe he can't get up to that 11.5 sack number, 12.5 sack number that he got early on in his career. I don't think it's crazy. I mean, his pressure rate was, I thought, pretty good. Even as far as how quick he was able to get to the quarterback. So to me, I didn't like it at first, but as I marinated on it, I think this is a great landing spot for him because I think they could really manage his reps. And as long as he stays healthy, I think he's got that upside.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know you mentioned the rotation, but the Chargers also rotated their defensive ends as well, and that still didn't help Joey Bosa stay healthy. Um, so I guess that health we'll see. It's just it's always the question. But if he does stay healthy, I mean, this was a good signing by the Buffalo Bills. Outside of Gregory Russo, they really don't have a consistent pass rush, and just another veteran guy to have on the roster and somebody who's got more juice than Von Miller, like you said, that they tried.
Well, I know you typically don't like Bosa. You're not a Bosa guy, nor really am I. So, I mean, was there any landing spot that he could have went to that you would have said that you loved the landing spot? I mean, to me, this was one of the best landing spots that he could have went to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been interesting for him to go San Fran. He'll play alongside his brother Nick Bosa. Ultimately, I was shocked. I really thought that's where he was going to go, and thought he'd be willing to take a bit of a discount to make it happen, but he didn't. I mean, Bills paid him more money, so he went there. But yeah, I think that would have been pretty interesting just to see the Bosas. They haven't played together since college, so to be able to see that happen would have been pretty interesting.
Yeah, that might have been a better landing spot. I mean, it would have been. Yeah, I mean, you could say it would have been a better landing spot, but at the same time, I feel like the Bills' defense as a whole is probably better now. I mean, the 49ers, man, the bus is starting to break it down on the highway. I mean, from what they used to be, that defense has got a lot of holes they've got to fill in the draft.
Yeah, for sure, it definitely does. I mean, they're a mess. They're in the rebuild process and lose all these guys just so they can pay Brock Purdy.
I'm just saying, as a complete defense, right? I mean, you talk about the pieces that they lost, right? They have no Hargrave anymore. They don't have Greenlaw anymore. They don't have Hufanga anymore. So, I mean, they don't have Javarius Ward. So they've lost a lot of really solid contributors to that defense. They're not the same defense as they were before.
They're definitely not the same defense. But I mean, Bosa gets to go play alongside Nick Bosa. They're going to double team him, and he'll have one-on-one opportunities. I'm not so sure he's probably going to be the guy getting double teamed when he's in there for the Bills.
Possibly, but I think he's a better supporting cast around him with Russo, Ed Oliver, maybe using Hoyt as a chess piece. I think just based on matchups, you might not be wrong. He may be the guy that gets double teamed, but I'm not so sure. So let's head over to the hate side. You may, who knows? We may even hear that you hate Bosa, Joe. But who do you have as your hate? Number one.
No, the first guy I'm going to go with is linebacker Robert Spillane, and it sucks because I really like Robert Spillane. Really liked when he went to the Las Vegas Raiders. And man, he had some good years there. But my concern with him is I feel like with the Patriots, they're a team that likes to rotate players, and I just don't think he's going to be that same 3-down linebacker. They've got guys like Bentley, even a Kyle Duggar who could supplement the passing game on third downs, and I feel like Robert Spillane does so well against the run. I feel like he's going to be like a first and second down linebacker to be that run stopper. And Vrabel remembers back when Spillane was a Pittsburgh Steeler and absolutely stopped Derrick Henry in his tracks along the goal line. And I'm sure that was back in his mind. It was like, man, I got to go get this guy in free agency to be that run stopper, which I think ultimately hurts his IDP value.
Yeah, I think my only question to you, I totally see why you're saying that. My only question is this the pay? Because obviously, Belichick rotated a ton of linebackers, and New England has never been a good place for IDP when it comes to the linebacker position. I'm not as familiar with Vrabel and how similar his defensive scheme and how he does things compared to his mentor Belichick. So that would be my only thing is, will that be the case as Spillane will be that situational player and not be the full-time guy that he was with the Raiders? I don't know. It would definitely be a changing of the guard from what we've seen in New England. It'll be very interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah. I mean, I would just kind of assume that's, he's a Belichick disciple, played under Bill Belichick. It worked pretty well when, he was a player. I would think that he'd kind of have the same mindsets.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I didn't like the landing spot either. I mean, again, he could prove us wrong, but I don't.
Yeah.
An initial read, I don't like it.
That's the thing. These are initial reactions. Spillane and the whole New England Patriot thing. Maybe he does get the full time playing role, and I we are wrong about this. This is just initial fear and our initial reactions on the moves, and that's why I kind of hate this landing spot for the fear of that happening.
So my first hate is going to be safety Camryn Bynum going to the Indianapolis Colts. Look, he was a late bloomer, guy who really came on the scene in his third year with his breakout year where he had 94 solo tackles, 137 total, 3 forced fumbles, 2 picks. Had 3 picks last year. I think he really benefited from being in that Minnesota defense, with Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator. I know Lou Anarumo now is defensive coordinator over with the Colts. Which he has, there's been success. He's had success with guys like Jesse Bates because, Bynum is not as much that box safety. I just think that I'm not as convinced that I think he was great in that system with Flores. I just don't see the same thing happening, with Indianapolis. So to me, it kind of takes it down a few notches for me when it comes to Bynum.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, he's a guy that I would have liked to seen stay in that Flores system because we've seen it flourish. I get the concern with him going to the Colts, but I mean, I think he's going to have a decent. He'll have his opportunities. We'll see how he does. I think there's always just that nervousness when guys are switching teams or switching systems. Not sure, but we've also seen safeties be productive under Lou Anarumo, who is now the defensive coordinator with the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm not so sure I hate this landing spot as much as you do. And they really needed some safety help there. And even if he is the kind of that coverage safety, maybe he can be that Jesse Bates type, turn into that Jesse Bates type of safety for Lou Anarumo and get his hands on the balls and get those interceptions.
It's possible. I'll be curious to see, how they end up utilizing Nick Cross. He obviously had a really good year this past year. Be curious to see, how the two of them end up playing together. But I just think he's a guy I would have liked to see return back with the Vikings based on what he was able to do. But he went to the Colts.
Yeah, I don't disagree. All might not be lost with him.
Yeah, I mean, hate might be a strong word with him. It's an instant reaction right now, but I just at this point I'm not liking it. But who knows? I could be proven wrong. Let's go to your last hate guy. Who do you got?
I'm also going to stick at the safety position here and go with Tre'von Moehrig. And this is a guy I liked since he came out of the draft, and disappointed with his slow start with the Las Vegas Raiders. But the last couple of years they figured things out, and he's really been a productive IDP safety. But a lot of that had to do with his box snap rate and just how much he was able to play in the box. And according to PFF here, it was 39.6 with the Raiders. And so I'm nervous that, with his new landing spot here and the change of teams, that he's just not going to have that high of a box rate. He's not the most elite of a coverage safety. He is a good tackler, but without being closer to the ball and getting all those box snap opportunities, I'm nervous about Moehrig going forward.
Well, it's kind of an interesting fit because, with Evero as a defensive coordinator, when Jeremy Chinn was still there in Carolina,
right,
there was a lot of enthusiasm about how Evero was going to use Chinn, for that type of role. And Chinn had a horrible year. He ended up signing with the Commanders on that prove-it deal and then signed a deal with the Raiders to then supplant Tre'von Moehrig. Well, now Moehrig, who was playing that role, is now going to Carolina. So Evero didn't do that great of a job with Jeremy Chinn. Do we think he's going to do a better job with Moehrig? I guess we'll come to find out. But,
that's the concern, though. That's why I don't really like the landing spot with the Panthers here.
No, I don't blame you. I mean, it is interesting, though, with Pete Carroll now, as a different defensive scheme. I don't know, would that have, changed, something with him? Yeah, that's the only thing. But the one thing will be going for Moehrig in Carolina is that he is the guy. Like, there is no other guy. I mean, they've got Damani Richardson, who was a rookie that they got on the team. I believe he was undrafted. So, I mean, but there is nobody else. So, and their linebackers aren't all that great either. I mean, they've got Josie Jewell, they've got Trevin Wallace. They signed Christian Rosenbaum. I'm not really scared about any of them. So, Should be interesting. So my player that I hate, and he's a guy who I predicted would go here, and he did. That's going to be Josh Sweat going to the Arizona Cardinals, reuniting with his former defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. Obviously, the Cardinals are desperate, and I mean desperate, for a pass rusher. They don't have anybody on the roster. And they signed Josh Sweat to a 4-year, $76.4 whopping million contract with $41 million guaranteed. I just don't know if Josh Sweat, who had a great Super Bowl and thought that he would get paid a ton because of what he was able to do, I think he's benefited greatly from being in the Eagles system. Can he be the guy that they have to key in on? The defense, the offenses are going to be in. We got to stop this guy. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it. I think he's been a product of his environment. He obviously was able to have 1 year where he had 11 sacks, and I mean he was all over the place against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong, but I don't like that. I just don't think he has a lot to work with in Arizona, and that has me concerned.
Yeah, I don't hate this landing spot as much as you do for him. I was actually kind of surprised by the Sweat being on the hate list.
What do you like about him?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it. It's about who you know, right? Reuniting with a past defensive coordinator he had success under Gannon with the Philadelphia Eagles. And talking about the traditional, like, a lot of these edge rushers aren't getting as much time on the field in a lot of the rotations. Arizona Cardinals don't have that luxury. And, they got a guy like Zaven Collins who's been starting to come along. They do have somebody. I mean, not saying it's the greatest, but Zaven Collins is coming along. And I think, he's a guy that's going to be on the field and going to have plenty of opportunities. And I think there could have been worse landing spots for Josh Sweat.
Yeah, I just think he could have benefited from having some sort of supporting cast. He has. You want to be nice and talk about Zaven Collins being a supporting cast. He's got nobody. He's got flat out nobody around him. Now let's see. Let's see what happens in the draft. Do the Cardinals end up picking some defensive linemen to help? I mean, they did draft who he didn't have, much of a rookie year at all. They did draft Darius Robinson, former first-round pick out of Missouri, who's kind of a tweener guy. So, maybe if he starts to come on, maybe they have him. But I don't know. I just think he would have been better off having some bookend with him, and he's got nobody, in my opinion.
Yeah, you don't always need a bookend, man. Like, if you're a good player, you're a good player, and I still think he'll have the opportunity to be a workhorse guy from an edge rusher standpoint for the Arizona Cardinals, and I still think he can be productive there.
So that does it for this episode. We talked about some players that we love and we hate, and based on their free agency and landing spots. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and see you next time.